I don't know who needs to hear this today. And I don't know, I felt the need to kind of share this because I have mentioned, I guess maybe in the past, that a lot of the work that I do is with fearful dogs. It's a love. It's a love that I have. Fearful, reactive dogs, kind of a love that I have. But the other side hustle? No, it's not a hustle. The other thing, I guess, if I was known for anything, one of the things that I'm super duper good at is the multi-dog household and living with groups of dogs, packs of dogs, some might say. Um, some also might tell me not to say the word pack, but the point is that I have for a very long time been living with groups of dogs. Over 25 years, I've been living with groups of dogs, large packs of dogs, not like 2 or 3 or 4, but like, 8 right now. I have 8 right now. That's the lowest number I've had in 25 years. So a lot of dogs and a lot of trial and error and a lot of work that I did through, back when I was in my early 20s, when I was a vet tech and I was, I'm going to come out and say it because I don't know what the legal ramifications are now. It's been so long. I stole dogs, stealing dogs from research facilities. Some of them weren't stolen, okay? Some of them they knew about, but others might have been just taken from research facilities. The point is this. I have done a lot of work with integrating dogs in and out of homes, helping people do that. And so I came across some posts, 2 posts actually recently in some Facebook groups, and it's really it really stuck out to me. And even though this wasn't necessarily what was scheduled today, I wanted to talk about the multi-dog household. I know there's been some people, Denise, I'm looking at you. I know there's people that are eagerly waiting for my masterclass on multi-dog households, and all of this stuff will go in there. But I wanted to kind of point out some things today for those of you that have multi-dog households, for those of you in the fostering or the pet sitting industry that also have dogs of your own. I want to give you a little bit of my insight, my experience of dealing with and having multiple dogs, large packs of dogs, while also having boarding, daycare, and other sorts, helping rescues with fosters. I've done it all. I want to share some of that with you here today. Here on the podcast, we're talking about all things multi-dog. We're going to be talking about sibling syndrome. We're going to be talking about temporary packs. We're going to be talking about familial packs. We're going to be talking about it all here today on the podcast. I don't know who needs to hear this, but we're doing it. Let's get into it. Are you worried that your fearful dog may hurt someone or something else? Do you have to prepare just to take a walk around the block? Hi, I'm Tracy, and I too had that dog. The one that you could only walk at nighttime when no one else was around. And I felt ashamed, and oh gosh, I wish that people could just see the dog that I know and love. I wanted the confidence to be able to walk my dog and not have to worry about who or what was around the corner. And I kept telling myself that if I just keep doing obedience drills and distracting with treats, that things would get better. Until I found the secret. Fear is not something that you can train out of a dog. In this podcast, you will find tips to help build your dog's confidence naturally, communication and understanding to foster that trust, and how to address those fear-based behaviors effectively so that you can enjoy a stress-free life with your dog. So if you're ready, stop chopping those chicken wieners, grab your notebook, and let's get to it. Hello, and welcome. It is me, Tracy. I'm here. I'm so glad that you are here, my friend. And I'm going to just say up front, 100% honesty. I don't really know where I'm going with this. So buckle in, my friends. This might take us on a bit of a journey. I'm going to try to keep it a little bit organized because, as I mentioned, this really wasn't what I was going to talk about. I've been trying to focus a little bit more on the fearful dog because we are so close. We are so close to getting that my newest love. Well, it is a love. It's a love. It's a labor of love. My newest course is going to be coming out very, very soon. I'm super excited about it. I may be a little bit too excited, and I may have been spending too much time putting cute little dog pictures on the slides. I'm not gonna lie, that might be a thing that's happening in the background. So I know I've talked a little bit about this, but that's coming up very, very soon. I'm close to getting it recorded and getting it all put together. So I'm super duper excited about that. And admittingly, this is a little off topic. And it will be some of the stuff that we're talking about in the upcoming masterclass called Peace in the Pack. But I came across some very, very heartbreaking posts recently. And so I feel this on my heart. This is just something I want to get out and say, because I do have a lot of experience when it comes to pack dynamics, when it comes to integrating dogs into your home, and particularly reading canine conversations between not only dogs, but also the conversations they're having, say, with kids. That happens a lot. Dogs talking to kids and we're not getting it. Just canine conversations, how dogs utilize space and levels and energy and all of that stuff. And it is like it's something that I know. Let me just put it that way. It's something that I know. So when I came across these two posts in particular, one was a tragic post. I actually cried. I might still cry. And I'm not going to share any of like the, obviously where I got the information from, because, you know, I don't have permission from the owner to share it. And it was in a Facebook group, but, it really did. It made me cry. So I just feel this is on my heart to get out. So please, if you don't mind, we're going to go off script a little bit. Some of you aren't going to mind. We're going to go off script a little bit, and we're going to talk about the multi-dog households. We're going to talk about packs and temporary social units and all sorts of good stuff. Before I do, though, this is going to be my new fun thing. Before I do. Again, if you are not pen pals with me, what are you waiting for? Be my pen pal. That sounds desperate. Be my pen pal. No, seriously, be my pen pal. Because I am loving these messages I'm getting on email from my pen pals. This one came from Joyce, and Joyce, I hope you don't mind. I'm doing a shout out to Joyce, my pen pal. We were talking, she's referencing the last week's podcast, the power of the word no and how you can use it. And she starts off by saying that, you know, drawing boundaries with dogs is not any different than the boundaries we set with kids. Couldn't agree more, Joyce. I have really well-behaved dogs and I have amazing children. Ask anyone. That's not just me saying that. That's not just a parental brag boast. Ask anyone. They'll tell you. I have great kids, and I believe there's something to be said about that. But this made me laugh because she said she was talking about two things that work for her. She said sometimes her dog's name is Crimson, and she said sometimes on a walk on a long lead, and she has in brackets, not great with recall just yet. So, hey, I love the fact your dog is on a long line because you know the recall's not quite there yet, and that's great. He gets into the hunting, sniffing mode that you were talking about, and that's when the Crimson J Otter, his complete name, is used, which snaps him out of it, much like our parents did when we were misbehaving. I laughed out loud at that, and also, I love that. Crimson J Otter. I could see it. And feel it, because I used to get Tracy Christine. I got that all the time when I was in trouble. So, Joyce, thank you for taking the time to write to me. If you have fun stories like that, please be my pen pal. How do you do it? If you're not already, you're going to go to beyondobedience.ca. You're going to wait on the page for a second. A little pop-up menu is going to come up, and it's going to say, do you want to join the Canine Chronicles? You give me your name and your email, and that's it. We're now pen pals. I'm going to send you a note every week, just checking in, saying hi, letting you know what's going on in my life. And if you want to, if you're so inclined, send me a note back. Why not? We can be pen pals. It's great. So thank you, Joyce, for that. That actually made me laugh out loud, and I was kind of like, it took me back. You're absolutely right. That is what our parents used to do for us. Tracy Christine. Whew, sends shivers down my spine whenever anyone uses it. All right, let's get into today's topic. So, again, bear with me, everybody, because as I've mentioned, it's a big topic, not obviously one that I can do in a 20 to 30 minute podcast, but I wanted to talk about the different types of packs, and in particular, for those of you that are in the fostering or helping out with rescues, or in the case of the tragic story that I just read, a pet sitter for a company. Um, and I will, I will say, I will say that the pet company, and there's a bunch of them, the pet sitting companies that are out there now that market this idea that your dog can go and live with other dog lovers, so that they're not in a kennel or a crate or anything like that. That kind of idea. That's what we're kind of talking about. And honestly, I have a lot of thoughts. I have a lot of thoughts about that. I had a lot of thoughts about that, honestly, before I read this tragic story of what happened for this particular woman. But I will say that that idyllic, that idyllic thought of, wouldn't it be nice if when I go away, I can just hand my dog to someone else and they'll live in the house and they won't be in crates and they won't be in kennels and they'll get treated just like a part of the family, is not very realistic. It really isn't very realistic. And that's kind of what has sort of brought me to this topic today. So let's first talk about, I'm going to give you a little bit of a backdrop in the different types of packs and whatnot that I have seen and worked with. If the word pack is offending you, social unit, whatever you want to call it, but I call it packs. Packs to me just mean groups of dogs. It means family, it means social unit, whatever. That's what pack means. Okay. And I've had an opportunity to work with and live with different types of packs. And I don't think sometimes we don't really think about the different types of packs, but I've had the rare opportunity to watch and observe a familial pack. So that was my breeding newfs, right? I had a male and a female that were that also had their offspring. And I had the opportunity, I've told these stories, but I've had the opportunity to actually watch the beauty of this pack, because they really were a true family pack. And interestingly, and we'll probably talk about this at some point in time, interestingly, have you heard of sibling syndrome? If you haven't, many trainers, myself included, would suggest to you to never ever get two puppies that are the same, like from the same litter, or even two puppies that are the same age at the same time. And there's a lot of reasons for that, but in particular, there's, the basic things of it is that two puppies of the same age, you will struggle to have relevance in their lives. You'll never be as exciting and as fun as the other puppy. So it's hard for you to help build an incredible bond with that dog, because they'll be too tightly bonded together. For those kind of dogs, that siblings like that, they struggle if they're separated apart from one another, all sorts of things. So we always recommend not to do that. The other side of that is we do see a high frequency of fighting and aggression when the dogs grow up, especially if you have two of the same sex. So if you get two female puppies or two male puppies, there are lots of incidences where as they mature and as they're trying to figure out where they fit in the world, they will struggle competition-wise, and they can be some really, really nasty fighting. And in a lot of cases, the best case scenario is for one of the dogs to go to another home, which is always heartbreaking, because by the time they get to the stage of fighting, you're bonded and connected to both of them. You like the quirkiness and the personality of each of the dogs, and it's hard. Like, how do you choose which one leaves? And so that's why you will hear many, many trainers and behavioralists tell you, do not do this. right? Myself included. One of the things that I will always say to people, because I've had people come up to me and say, Tracy, you had, 19 dogs at one point in time, and they were all just good dogs, really good dogs. How did you do it? How did you get 19 good dogs? And I will tell you, it starts with one good dog. It starts with one good dog. So I always suggest the best thing for you to do, even if you're like, I really want to eventually have two dogs, is you start with one. You put all your energy and time and devotion into creating an incredible bond, getting your leadership, your relevance, doing fulfillment, just building this dog up to be the best version that it can possibly be. And then when that dog is like that, when you decide to get another dog, you now have a great role model dog for your puppy, and everything else gets easier. And honestly, that's also when I will tell you flat out, slippery slope. Once you have a good dog and the puppy comes in and your dog helps raise and mold that dog because you have this incredible dog, it becomes really easy to get another dog. And then next thing you know, you're calling your husband. You're like, hey, I got this other dog. And before you know it, you're up to 19 dogs. And you're like, how did that happen? But they're just good dogs. So it's easy. Slippery slope. But that is absolutely true. So let's talk about sibling syndrome. And the reason why I'm bringing it up for me personally is because, as I mentioned, I had a familial pack, which means I have, what is that English? Ugh. I have had a breeder pair in the past. I have had their siblings. I've had 3 sisters. I've had 2 males, brothers that were both intact, which, some people would be cringing at that. How can you have 2 male dogs both intact? I've had brother and sister siblings. I've had the gamut of dogs, and they've all gotten along and they've all been fine. And the reason why I believe that to be true, and this is in my opinion, this is very anecdotal. This isn't based on any, I haven't, I don't think there's been any research on this. This is just my own personal experience. But when I tell people that, especially like intact females and intact males that are siblings, I had trainers be like, oh my gosh, why would you do that? And I'm like, I don't know. It just happened that way, but it worked out fine. And not only did it work out fine, it was one of the nicest, closest, most amazing relationships that I had the honor of watching. I have this, this one's going to run long. I can tell you that right now. We're at 17 minutes. I'm only still talking about siblings. But I want to share this one time we were doing Trainers United Summit back in my place in Ontario. And at the time I had put my noofs, I had put my breeder male and his 3 siblings, 3 females. They were in the round pen. And one of the other trainers was doing, I think it was a muzzle demonstration. Doesn't matter. He was doing something else over there. And so everyone was kind of not really paying attention. I was just sitting in the round pen with my dogs, and I was just watching them. And it was such a beautiful thing to watch, because Wellington, who was the father, and if you haven't heard my episode number 1, the greatest lesson I've ever learned was from Wellington. So he's very, very special and near and dear to me. Anyway, Wellington and his 3 daughters were there. And because there were other dogs and a bunch of strange people, it was a big seminar and lots of things going on, I sat and watched how brilliantly his 3 daughters took care of him. At any given time, because Wellington was getting older, so at any given time, Wellington was laying down in the grass. There was always one daughter that would lay with him, and she would always put her front leg or paw across his paws as he laid there. And she would quite often lick at his eye and whatnot, but she always laid there. Well, the other 2 females would walk the perimeter around the round pen, and then they would switch. It was so cool to watch. Then the one that was lying with Wellington would get up, and another one of the daughters would lay down with him. At any given time, there was always a dog with him, and there were always 2 that were checking the perimeter. And they'd come in and they'd check with me too, because I was kind of just sitting off to the distance a little bit just watching the whole thing. And I remember just like not paying at all attention to the the muzzle demonstration. I was literally just like, look how amazing my dogs are. But it really kind of took my breath away how protective and how sweet and how amazing they were. And I got to witness that all the time with them. These guys were always together. I never ever had an issue with any of my siblings fighting. I never had an issue. No, that's not true. I had one fight. I had one fight between a son and a father, but it was when it was over coming through the door at the same time, and it was right at the time when the son was kind of coming into his own, and he was just in a testing phase, and they both tried to go through the door together, and there was a little squabble that happened there. I want to be completely honest, that did happen. So I mean, stuff happens. That's, dogs. But generally speaking, over the years of having multiple siblings, multiple and breeders and intact dogs, that was my reality. Those were the things that I saw. And the reason, this is again my opinion, the reason why I believe that they got along so well is because these dogs did not live in my house. We had a kennel, and they weren't part of my house pack. And I truly believe in my heart of hearts, the reasons why they got along so well was because they had limited human interference. We didn't mess it up, essentially. That's what it comes down to. And I truly believe that, my heart of hearts. That's the reason why we didn't have all the fighting and the arguing and in some cases, especially with siblings, like fights to the death, right? That does happen. That is recorded. That can be an issue. And I never had it, and I never worried about it. They stayed they had a great big huge run. They had a great big huge paddock that was theirs. And I never worried about them. I never came into a bloodbath or anything. They ate together. They played together. They were always together. And I didn't have any issue with them again, other than that one time. But again, I'm not going to lie. That was when I was working at another daycare, because this was before I was doing my own. I was working at another daycare, and I had started taking the young male to work with me, and I was bringing him back, and that's when that fight happened. So my theory still stands. Look at that. I'm working things out as we go. My theory still stands. I was interfering with that. He had a connection with me. He was taken out of the pack dynamic and was coming in to work with me. So he would have been coming home smelling like other dogs. I probably messed that up. Oh my gosh. That was probably it. So my theory still stands. my theory still stands. Okay. So that is why, when I talk about the familial pack, I need people to recognize this wasn't a pack that lived in my house, right? I did not have these dogs in my house. They were their own unit without the interference. So think of it this way. There wasn't any resource guarding of people. There wasn't any resource guarding of stuff or beds. A lot of the times, and I will say this, especially when it comes to conflict with dogs, a lot of the times the guarding of resources is because of the label that we have put on the resources. Let me say that again. The guarding of resources that happens with dogs in homes has to do with the label that we put on the resource. The fact that we say things like, this is Fido's bowl. This is Jojo's bed. This is Fluffy's toy. We put those labels on things. We don't allow the dogs to actually control the resources. We've decided what they are. And because of that, a lot of the conflict comes from that. It's the stuff we've done, because those dogs that didn't have me in there interfering, I couldn't tell you whose bone was whose when I went into their yard. I'm like, there's bones out there. I'm like, could have been Chuckle's bones, could have been Eclipse's bone. I don't know. They never fought over it though. Right? I was never involved. So I think that's a really important thing to do. I got to move on, because otherwise you guys are going to be like, Tracy talks forever. Tracy talks forever. All right. So that's one of the types of different types of pack. The other packs that I have worked with, and this is where it becomes very important, is what I would call my temporary packs. So those would have been my daycare packs and my boarding dogs. So dogs that came in for daycare and dogs that came in for boarding. Now there were differences, observational differences between those packs as well. For example, daycare dogs that came on a regular basis, and there was always those, right? I had the Monday group, the Wednesday group, the Friday group. Usually dogs that came 3 times a week came Monday, Wednesday, Fridays. There was the Tuesday, Thursday group, right? There were those dogs that, they wanted to do it twice a week, so they came Tuesday, Thursday. And then, of course, there were the dogs that came every single day, Monday through Friday, every single day. Now, I will tell you, because there were dogs that came every single day or on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and they knew each other, they would actually be their own temporary pack. They got to know each other. And in the off season of boarding, which would be most times other than holidays, so not summer or Christmas, that kind of thing. And when we didn't have a lot of boarding dogs, those dogs would get along great. Where I would always have to be cautious is during the summertime, when I would have boarding dogs. And you would see like how I introduce a new dog to the daycare pack is very strategic. It wasn't like I was just like, oh, this is a nice dog and this is a nice dog, I'm going to put them together and they'll get along. No. Those dogs have formed a temporary pack. They know each other. They know their play styles. They understand each other. So just throwing another dog into the mix wasn't something that you could just do without thinking it through. Right? I had to be very, very cautious, and I had to make sure that I didn't have dogs that were bullying or picking on or that sort of thing. And a lot of times that introduction came from, I would split the daycare groups up and I would introduce it to a few dogs and see how they were. Like, it was a thing, y'all. Like, it was a thing. I have to say it because I think sometimes, especially if you don't know, lots of people would come up to me and be like, oh my gosh, your job must be so amazing, Trace. You get to play with dogs all day. It's not that easy, right? It's not that easy. There is a lot of thought process and a lot of observation. A lot goes into bringing dogs in and out of groups. Okay. Numbers matter, right? Strength in numbers, and dogs are strategic. They're tactical. They use levels, they use space, they use different things that, help to communicate what they need at the time. So it wasn't as simple as being like, oh, I got a new boarding dog, I'm just going to throw this dog in. We had to be very, very strategic. So those temporary packs were something, right? Other packs that we had were what I would call my working packs. So those were dogs that were actively working. And that would be for pack walks. Sometimes I would get like, let's say 2 like hunting dogs there was a while there was really cute. I had 2 Jack Russells. They weren't related. Oh no, I had 1 Jack Russell and 1 was mine. That's why. Anyway, I took those 2 out because I was like, typical human stuff. I was like, I'm going to take these 2 Jacks out because they're cute and I'm going to see what they're like together. And it was fascinating for me to watch 2 Jack Russells work because they work together but independently. It was the coolest thing. But when dogs are working, they're in a different frame of mind than when they're in play. So you can get away with a lot more. You can introduce a lot more eclectic dogs in a working frame of mind than you can in play. Right? So there's all these different types of packs. And then there was the pack that shared space with me. Okay. And sharing space with me in Humansville came with much different rules. And it comes with a lot more things that I have to be aware of. In particular, we have to be aware of how dogs view us as a resource, right? When we work really hard to be the center of a dog's universe, which we should be, that's kind of the goal, right? We want the dogs to always turn to us. When we do that, we become the most important thing. But then we become the most important thing. So when you have multiple dogs, that dynamic changes everything in how dogs see the world. And so you have to be very, very aware of what that means and how each personality within that pack are responding and reacting to you. And it is like an art form to try to figure out how to make these dogs all work together. So when I would have dogs that were living with me in my house, right, I am very, very cautious on how I dole out affection. I'm very, very cautious on how I feed. I'm very, very cautious on space and stuff and things. Who's allowed to share the den and the sacred space with me versus who's not, and what kind of signal that sends. And so there's a lot to consider when we bring a dog into a house. So this is why, speaking of this scenario that I just read about on the Facebook group of a woman who was pet sitting for a company that brings in other dogs, and tragically something happened and there was a terrible fight. This is why I say you can't just bring in another dog from a different thing and have them share space with you without thinking that there may be some sort of fallout from that eventually. And I'm sure these companies will advertise how great it is and how many success story that is. But as far as I'm concerned, it's a ticking time bomb, right? I don't mix. Like when I boarded dogs, they did not stay with my house dogs. Now, my house dogs would go out for play groups with the daycare and became part of those temporary packs. But when they were out there, bet your bottom dollar, I had to make sure that my dogs weren't resource guarding me. I was very, very aware of how they were doing it, because you could see that. My house dogs would totally be like, she picked me. Right? I live in the house with her. Like they would try to step on a foot here and there. They would try to get in between conversations, and I was very aware of it. And I'd be like, no, not out here. We don't do that. Get away from me. Everybody's equal. Everybody's equal in the play yard. I would have to be incredibly conscientious about everything that was going on there. But I will tell you, I did not bring boarding dogs into my house to board, right? They always stayed in the kennel, and boarding dogs and daycare dogs always had their own suite. I never mixed and matched dogs. They always had their own suite. If I wasn't there to be actively watching them and watching the canine conversations that were going on, they were safely put away in their own suite. That's also why I'm going to probably get a lot of hate for this. This is also why I never liked any of the boarding or daycares that rave about the fact that they let their dogs stay in groups. I don't think that's smart. Also, the fact that at the end of the day, dogs get tired, they can get cranky. Some dogs can be a little bit more sore. They might be a little bit more edgy. Like never did it. I never did it. Okay. And on the off chance, because I say I never did it, but I'll tell you right now, a very few times did I allow boarding dogs to stay in my house. They were usually really small dogs that didn't really fit in the kennel, because if you haven't heard, my kennel back then was a refurbished horse facility. So the suites were 10 by 10 horse stalls. So little tiny dogs look like got swallowed up by the hugeness of that building. So on occasion, those dogs would stay in my house, but never unattended. They still slept in their own space, in their own crates, in in the front of my room. They never slept or stayed with my house dogs unattended. Not ever, not ever, not ever, never, ever. I don't know if I'm making myself clear how cautious I was about that, because I know The power of that. The dogs that were with me are going to have more things to guard and resource. They're going to have more conversations because of me and because of what we put in it. And if you add to that, I have a family that also messes things up, because if you have dogs that are living with you, there is no such thing as my dog, your dog. Right? In my house, my son has one of the dogs he says is his dog. And I'm like, at the end of the day, it's not your dog. All the dogs are everybody's dogs. They have to be. If you start doing my dog, your dog, you're going to create an us versus them. See, oh my gosh. See, I'm getting into basically the whole thing of the multi-dog pack. What am I at? 35 minutes. See, I told you this could go on. Here's my tip for you. Do I have a tip? Do I even have a point to this? Are we getting to the end of this and Tracy's like, I don't know, what's the point? Usually I have here's 3 tips for you. Here's 3 tips for you. If you are somebody, there's my point. I knew I'd find one. Here's my point. If you are somebody who is fostering, if you are someone who is, and has other dogs, if you're someone that is involved in a pet sitting service, all of those things, please hear me when I say this. New dogs that come into your house should not be granted access to the same things that your dogs have that are established in your home. Okay? You should always be using caution. Now, this is the caveat to that. Where this is different is if you are planning on adopting the dog. If this is a trial and you're planning on adopting the dog, then we would still have the safety boundaries up, right? Never left alone unattended. Never left alone unattended. Let me say that 3 times so that people get this. If you have a pack of dogs, if you have your own dogs in your house and you bring a new dog for foster to adopt, for pet sitting, never, ever leave them alone, unattended with the rest of your dogs. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. I don't care how great you think they're getting along. They play so well together. They look so cute together. I don't care how well they get along. Never, ever, ever leave them unattended. Okay? But if you are someone who is trying to, you're planning on bringing this dog into your unit, then there are things that we can do to do it. We're going to do some individual stuff with that dog, and then we're going to do some pro-social stuff, and we're going to start to weave them into the fold of your new pack. But that takes time, a lot of time. 3 months, 6 months, 2 years, whatever. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of time. So, that was a lot. That was a lot. And as I say, I could probably go on and on and on about it. I could go on and on and on about it. I will go on and on about it. Sign up. Be on that pen pal list, because if you are interested in this kind of stuff and learning about all the different ways that dogs interact in the pack and all of those things, and this is something that you're interested in, you want to continue fostering and helping out rescues, which is a noble cause, and I'm all for it. You just got to do it safely. If that is you, then you definitely want to sign up to the mailing list, because you will be getting an invite to join me for the Peace in the Pack Masterclass, absolutely free, because I want some feedback and questions so I can make it more robust and help more people. You can be a part of that only if you're on the mailing list. That's where it's going to come out. It's the only place I'm going to advertise it, on that mailing list. So my podcast listeners and my pen pals, you'll be the first to know. You will be the first to know. All right. I don't know why I put that into song. There you go. There you go. Coming up to 40 minutes. I guess we're done. So if you enjoyed this episode, please be sure, if you're on Apple, please be sure to just give me a 5-star review, written review if you can. It really does help me. It really does help push the podcast out to more and more people. And, I just got notification on Spotify that now, see, before I could put a poll up and you guys could comment on it, and I could just look at the comment and go, that was nice of them to say, but I couldn't do anything about it. And I just got a thing saying now it can be a comment that I can like and also reply to, which is exciting. For the first time in forever. That's how I felt. I was like, for the first time, I'll be able to actually respond to you on Spotify. So I'm super stoked about that. So if you're listening to this on Spotify, give me a little comment. Let me know how you're feeling. Let me know what you like. Let me know, and I can respond to you. It's exciting. These are exciting times. I'm excited. I hope you're excited too. All right. As always, get out there today and be the person that your dog thinks you are, because your dog thinks you are amazing. And so do I. Have a great week, everybody, and I'll see you all next week. Bye for now. Oh, and one more thing. As always, this podcast is meant for education and entertainment purposes only and should never replace hands-on professional training if you feel that your dog is unsafe or really struggling with your dog's behavior. All right, that's it. Bye for now.